Orhun heads to the Grand Dungeon for the expedition, but he's still thinking about what he read in the newspaper. As you may recall, that day's newspaper article stated he was expelled from the heroes' party due to his weakness, and although he knew this would eventually occur, he doesn't comprehend why it had to happen precisely now. He can't help but wonder just how many people will continue to trust him after reading that article, especially considering all the things Selma had said about him. Meanwhile, all the rookies on the expedition are discussing this, and Logan recalls Orhun's statement from yesterday that he chose to leave the party, but if he was actually expelled, the real story would be entirely different. Orhun finally arrives, and from the way the kids greet him, he can already tell everything is completely different from yesterday, though after all the nonsense Selma pulled in his name, he can understand why they're confused. Selma immediately runs up to him to apologize, saying she had no idea. Orhun smiles and tells her there's no reason to apologize and that if she can't pull herself together, their training expedition will be a failure. Selma insists, saying she used him too much as an inspiration for the new recruits yesterday, but she should have been more careful. Orhun reassures her that it's okay and clarifies that he's the one who should be apologizing for causing trouble by not being clear. He reassures her he'll support them throughout the dungeon expedition, so she must keep her head up, just as she always does. Bernard says it's still true that Orhun made it to the 94th floor, and even that alone is incredible. Kathy and Amton agree, saying they're not worried at all, and Selma acknowledges that he did an excellent job yesterday. Orhun decides to show them the same thing as always today, so he goes to his assigned group and greets them. Sophia immediately tells him that today's newspaper article is full of lies, and Caroline agrees, saying none of it matters. Logan, on the other hand, asks him if it's true, and Orhun admits that most of it is. This takes them by surprise, so Orhun tells them if they're asking if he was too weak, then the answer is indeed yes. That's why he's not the hero everyone expects now, and he wants to apologize for not telling them. Logan starts to wonder what's really going on, but Sophia stubbornly insists, saying Orhun was strong and took down over a dozen orcs in an instant, so she knows he's not that weak. Orhun expresses his gratitude for their trust and assures them he possesses sufficient strength to guide them to the 51st floor, at minimum. He's no longer a hero, but as Orhun Dura, a simple explorer, he swears he will protect them. So he wants them to give it their all in the dungeon raid, just like yesterday. Sophia and Caroline quickly agree, but Logan is still clearly very confused and feels a bit foolish for getting his hopes up. Once the expedition begins, they'll head to the Southern Grand Dungeon's 21st floor, knowing they must reach the 35th today. Orhun follows them closely, aware that the escorts won't give instructions for now, not until they reach the middle floor starting from floor 31. Until then, it'll be just like yesterday, with the new recruits taking the lead. Sophia and Caroline lead the way, defeating monsters until they reach the 29th floor, and Orhun praises them for their good work, glad to see they still trust him. After a while, they reach the 31st floor, so from this point on, Orhun will be the one giving orders, and he needs to stay sharp. He halts the group, informing them he perceives monsters up ahead, thus requesting their preparedness. The girls follow his instructions, but Logan remains silent and still, and several goblins begin to approach. Orhun orders Caroline to draw the goblins' attention, so she runs straight at them with her daggers, just like always. Then, Orhun tells Sophia to handle the orcs in the rear and asks Logan to reinforce them with magic. But without letting him finish, Logan uses his agility spell, his technical and magic spell, to support the girls, knowing Orhun's orders are what anyone would give, which makes him think maybe he's nothing special after all. But that doesn't change what he has to do, so he focuses on boosting the girls' abilities with his support magic. Once he's taken care of Caroline, Logan notices that Sophia is too scared to move. He recalls her previous account of being attacked by orcs, understanding now that she's too traumatized to engage in battle. Logan sees that Orhun isn't doing anything to help her and thinks he can't count on him for even that, so he'll have to save her himself. But just then, Orhun uses a spell to decelerate the orc, weakening and slowing it down in an instant. He then approaches Sophia and reassures her, reminding her that she has her companions Caroline and Logan, as well as himself, right there by her side, so she's no longer alone and nothing bad will happen to her. Sophia manages to calm down and decides to give it her all, launching a powerful fire spell at the orc. This surprises everyone, including Orhun, but Sophia ends up exhausted. Orhun remains somewhat rattled since no one had mentioned that the girl possessed advanced magic abilities. Caroline immediately forgets what she was doing and runs to Sophia to tell her how amazing that was. Orhun also praises her, so Sophia quickly recovers, happy that it worked out. Logan observes everything in disbelief, knowing Orhun was the one who applied that weakening effect to the orc, which makes his expulsion from the heroes' party even more confusing. Ultimately, they arrive at the 35th floor and encounter a massive death tarantula. but Logan immediately feels they are not nearly strong enough to contend with such a creature. However, Orhun calmly tells him to cast an agility and durability spell on Caroline and boost Sophia's magic. Logan is taken aback by receiving the same old orders since this is no ordinary enemy. But without giving him time to think about it, Caroline runs straight toward the death tarantula, so Logan tries to stop her. Orhun asks him to wait, explaining he'd be at a disadvantage if he goes first. He then tells Caroline to lure it out. She diligently follows his precise instructions, managing to effortlessly cut the tarantula's back, and so he asks Orhun to maintain its full attention on her. He warns her that the death tarantula is highly venomous, so she must carefully observe its attacks and make sure to dodge them effectively. Logan swiftly casts his support magic upon her, enabling Caroline to expertly evade every single one of the tarantula's attacks. After blocking one of the attacks with her daggers, Caroline backs away, making sure to keep the tarantula's attention on herself. The death tarantula follows her, and Orhun reminds Logan that Caroline's mobility depends on him, so he must support her. Logan stays focused on that, so Orhun asks Sophia to immobilize it. Sophia doesn't waste any time and uses her staff to launch an attack called Arrow Cutter, which manages to sever 4 of the tarantula's legs in an instant. Ah, it fell! The death tarantula drops immediately, so Caroline celebrates victory, but Orhun warns them it's not yet finished. Without any explanation, he tells Logan to grant Caroline more strength and technical skill. Logan doesn't understand why, but he follows the instructions and uses his support magic on Caroline. But just then, the death tarantula shoots its webs at Caroline, instantly trapping her and dragging her in to be eaten. Logan panics as he watches Caroline get slowly dragged towards the tarantula's mouth. But Orhun remains completely calm and instructs Caroline to sever the webs with her daggers, as she has become sufficiently strong now. Caroline desperately tries to move her arms to cut the webs with her daggers, and Logan begins to wonder if Orhun had given those orders because he knew this would transpire. Orhun then asks Sophia to prepare a rock arrow, instructing Logan to give her another magic boost as the previous one is about to expire. Logan quickly complies, but Caroline starts to panic even more, exclaiming that she's unable to cut through the webs. Orhun observes the situation, knowing that Logan can only use 3 spells at once, so he has no choice but to intervene. He decides to use Philo, enhancing Caroline's daggers, which finally allows her to cut through the webs. Once free, Sophia casts Rock Arrow, defeating the death tarantula with a single blow. Caroline runs to her and celebrates as usual, and Orhun praises Logan for his work, saying this all worked thanks to his support magic. Logan thanks him, and Orhun tells them it's time to head back. Once outside, Selma reminds them that tomorrow is their last day, so they should rest well to be ready. Meanwhile, before Orhun leaves, Werner and Anthem approach him and invite him to get something to eat with them. Orhun is a little surprised they want him to join, and he notices they don't seem bothered by his presence, which is a very good sign. Thus, he decides to accept, acknowledging they have few chances to converse while exploring, making this a great opportunity to socialize. Concurrently, Logan inquires of Sophia about Orhun saving her, and she, bewildered, recounts it happened 3 days prior in a freshly discovered dungeon. Logan asks if he was entirely on his own, and when she confirms this, he then asks her to tell him about his movements. Sophia doesn't really know what to say, so Logan asks if she remembers what spells he used or how he fought. Sophia tries her very best to recall the details and tells him there was an incredible wind attack he used against the orcs. He also did something that seemed to enhance his sword with support magic to fight. Logan assumes that was Philo, knowing it is a support spell that applies to weapons, not to people. Caroline gets excited and comments that he used that today too, because her daggers became much sharper in an instant, and she was honestly surprised. Logan asks Sophia if Orhun was using a sword when he saved her, and Sophia says yes, explaining he was cutting down the orcs. Logan understands that Orhun can apparently fight with a sword, not just with magic. Sophia tells him she truly doesn't know why, but after leaving the hero group, he transformed into a frontline attacker. That surprises Logan, but he quickly says it doesn't make sense, because today he acted like a perfect enchanter. Remembering Orhun's performance in the dungeon today, Logan realizes he completely misjudged him this morning. When he discovered Orhun had been banished from the hero group, he was filled with disappointment and anger, feeling as though Orhun had truly betrayed his expectations. Yet, in the clash with those orcs, Orhun stealthily cast a slowdown spell, a debuff that diminishes an opponent's capabilities, essentially nerfing them, and he did it with effortless ease. Indeed, even Selma rarely uses such spells, finding them difficult to wield, yet Orhun seemed to use it with utmost ease. And then there's the fierce battle with the Death Tarantula on the 35th floor, which marked Logan's initial realization of just how crucial formations truly are. If the defender can keep the enemy distracted, then the attacker and support can fully focus on their next move. That's truly the ideal way to fight, and Orhun also knew precisely when the buffs he bestowed upon his companions would expire. He even predicted the Death Tarantula's final attack when Caroline got trapped in the webs. Orhun was meticulously analyzing how the battle would unfold and issuing flawless commands, demonstrating he is truly leagues above him. Knowing that, Logan doesn't understand why he would become a frontline attacker. Caroline asks Sophia if Orhun is also strong as a frontline attacker, and she tells her yes. Sophia reminds them that, like she said this morning, Orhun took down more than a dozen orcs in an instant. Caroline is easily impressed and states her desire to quickly become as strong as him. Sophia concurs, assuring her that she too will grow stronger, so they both must strive to do their best. Logan remains silent once more, still analyzing the situation and the reality that Orhun is, quite surprisingly, also a formidable frontline attacker. He knows that's what a true genius is like, but he's not going to give up anyway, so... Stronger. Caroline interrupts his thoughts, telling him he has a truly frightening expression at that moment. She asks if he's tired or something of the sort, or perhaps he's plotting something against humanity. Well then, Logan snaps out of his thoughts and tells her he was just getting hyped up for tomorrow. Caroline gets excited to hear he's ready because Caroline is always excited, so she decides to get hyped up too. Meanwhile, Bernard and Anthem tell Orhun that they'll pay for today's meal, so he can eat as much as he wants. Orhun thanks them, but Bernard, short and to the point, says he was in the hero group and must have partied a lot. Orhun tells him it wasn't like that at all, and explains that he was stuck doing all the errands and various minor jobs, so he didn't really have much time for fun. Anthem says that sounds rough, and Bernard comments that it makes the article even worse, because there was no need to portray him like that. Anthem agrees with him, telling Orhun to simply let it go. Orhun admits that just hearing them say that truly makes him happy, and he profusely thanks them for it. Anthem mentions he was actually an enchanter in the hero group, but he told them he was a frontline attacker when they first met. Bernard also expresses his curiosity about it and truly wants to know which of the two he actually is. Orhun explains that he uses a sword now because he became a frontline attacker after leaving the hero group. He remembers that he was also a swordsman in the hero group and that he wanted to be one more than anything since he was a kid, so he was really happy when he got that position. Anthem asks if maybe one of his parents was a swordsman since, well, it's something he wanted since he was little. Orhun clarifies it was his grandfather. He was an explorer, and one day a monster appeared in his village, which he defeated with a single sword stroke. After seeing that, he wanted to become a swordsman, so he worked as hard as he could to achieve it. Anthem asks why he became an enchanter, wanting so badly to be a swordsman. Orhun explains that it happened when the hero group started descending to the lower floors and their pace began to slow down. The monsters grew significantly stronger on those lower levels, naturally causing their progress to slow, yet the group failed to grasp this and eager to advance swiftly, they soon took an interest in the enchanters, who were then gaining widespread popularity. Since he was an all-rounder capable of doing anything, they chose him to be the enchanter. Anthem understands it was for the group's sake but points out that he still made it to the 94th floor, so it was the right call. But Orhun disagrees, stating it wasn't the ideal approach, because even after changing roles, they ought to have taken more time to strengthen themselves first. Bernard and Anthem look a little confused by what he's saying, and Orhun realizes he might have said too much. He quickly backtracks and apologizes, admitting he's being a bit harsh on his old group. Realizing he can't elaborate further, he chooses to conclude the discussion at that point. However, he remains convinced that the hero group will be unable to progress beyond the 94th floor, a thought he intends to keep to himself. Bernard tries to change the subject and asks him what his ideal swordsman would be, hoping he'll tell them. Orhun ponders for a moment before responding that his ideal swordsman would be an incredibly versatile one. Anthem and Bernard appear somewhat confused, so Orhun clarifies that such a swordsman could basically single-handedly conquer even the lowest dungeon floors. That's exactly what he aspires to be, and the precise reason he made the choice to transition into a frontline attacker. Despite their initial surprise, Anthem and Bernard smile and tell him that knowing him, they're sure he'll achieve it. In another scene, after arriving home, Caroline and Sophia decide to take a shower to relax after a long day. Caroline mentions that their teaching expedition ends tomorrow, and that will mean saying goodbye to Orhun. Sophia knows this, but still tries to process that she won't see him after tomorrow. She wishes he'd stay with the Night Sky Rabbits, and Caroline tells her she should ask him. She assures her that he'll probably agree if she asks him, just like Selma always gets him to do. Sophia swiftly informs Caroline that Orhun isn't like her sister, and asking him to remain would be far too selfish, so she's quite certain it wouldn't even succeed regardless. Despite this, Sophia can't help but feel it would be terribly sad not to see him again after this teaching expedition and all he's done for her. So she begins to contemplate the idea of speaking with him the very next time their paths cross. The following day, numerous people gather before the Great Dungeon, and all eyes turn as they recognize the famed hero group has made their grand entrance. Oliver, with his head held high, proudly walks alongside the other members of the group. However, Luna appears to be the only one among them who is not happy